Story 1-1. He called the cave rescuer a pedophile and doubled down on it after lying about sending a rescue mini-submarine. 2. During the height of the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, he claimed he was retrofitting his production and said he sent 1,000 ventilators to desperate hospitals in the United States. He sent a few cheap, outsourced continuous positive airway pressure machines for sleep apnea and did not send a single ventilator. Story 2. The first time I realized there was something wrong with him was when he accused a mine diver of being a pedophile because he was angry at him. It was all downhill from there. Story 3. That whole incident with the children trapped in a cave in Thailand, when Musk tried to insert himself as the hero, revealed a lot about his character to me. After professional divers actually rescued the children and no one took Musk's mini-submarine idea seriously, he called the leader of the rescue team a pedophile. He has an ego the size of the sun, the maturity of a 12-year-old, and the self-awareness of a brick. Story 4. The Thai cave incident was when it started. It continued every time he opened his mouth about matters he clearly did not understand. He is not a futurist. He is a reactionary who wishes he could be a 19th century robber baron. Story 5. It should have been obvious after the Thai cave rescue, but I did not follow that story closely. I first started to have questions when he proposed an underground hyperloop for Route 1 in Delaware. Most people have probably forgotten that, but I am from Delaware and have driven on Route 1 many times, so it caught our attention here. Route 1 experiences very heavy traffic in the summer when people travel from points north to the beach resort towns, but otherwise it is a mostly empty stretch of highway connecting sparsely populated areas. Delaware is basically a sandbar. In many places you only have to dig about 2 feet to hit water. You do not want a basement there, much less a tunnel running the length of the state. My first reaction was that it would be awesome on the 4th of July weekend. Then I wondered why and how, and whether this person might actually be a complete loon that nobody had noticed. Story 6. He fired his secretary, who had been loyal to him for years, after she asked for a raise. Story 7. Quite honestly, the turning point came after I began to like him. The problem is that once you learn anything about him, you realize what a miserable sack of wasted flesh he is. Once you examine his social media presence, the reality becomes unavoidable. I thought he might be onto something because of his association with solar panels, but one Google search later I realized I had been wrong. This was quite a while ago, so his personal opinions were not yet plastered everywhere. Story 8. No single turning point, but several things over time. The first moment for me was when Elon Musk insisted our world is a simulation based on flimsy logic and many accepted it uncritically. I do not have a strong opinion on the idea, but I was put off by how he seemed to rise above scrutiny. Next was the Thai cave rescue. I was not bothered by his offer of resources, even if no one had asked. The problem was the false accusation, calling his critic a pedophile if I recall correctly, and everything that followed. Then the Cybertruck. It seemed impractical in many ways. Finally, the actions he took immediately after purchasing Twitter resulted in a series of poor business decisions and mistreatment of people. Story 9. I liked him when he focused on making green energy affordable. I remember the Tesla solar roof and still think it is a great idea. The turning point for me came when he became more political and moved down an anti-woke, conspiracy theorist path. The people rallying around him were not the kind I like or agree with. He kept doubling down, eventually buying Twitter and losing a lot of money. It became obvious that he is very thin-skinned and cannot admit he is wrong about anything. Then he began letting his racism and anti-Semitism show, but by then I was already past my turning point. Story 10. I had to work with him. He was rude, belittled and yelled at an engineer. Then he stormed off and flipped his smock like an evil villain. Story 11. I used to read about him from afar, browsing headlines and stories that called him the next great inventor, like a modern Nikola Tesla. I thought he was interesting and looked forward to hearing more. As more information emerged, it became clear he is not what he was made out to be. He is extremely wealthy with very good public relations. No single event changed my view. He is not what he or others claimed, just a deep-pocketed investor pouring money into renewable energy because he believes it is the future. In short, he is an ordinary, flawed human, not the visionary social media made him out to be. Story 12. He smoked marijuana on the Joe Rogan Experience despite firing Tesla workers who tested positive. Story 13. When he began saying that Ukraine should submit to Russia and be done with it, he amplified that stance by randomly shutting down Starlink to sabotage Ukrainian military operations out of pettiness. Story 14. My breaking point was when Musk made excuses for Putin in Ukraine. Story 15. I read his authorized biography about a decade ago. He is a complete tool who sees people as resources for his own consumption. Story 16. Dogecoin pump and dump sketch on Saturday Night Live. A man defrauded thousands of people. Story 17. If your goal is to make humanity a multiplanetary species, the cost of Twitter would have funded a lot of spacecraft development. Story 18. Giving his child that stupid name forces the child to either change their name or be isolated by anyone who knows their real name. Story 19. Examples include him saying he would donate $6 billion to fight world hunger if the charity laid out a comprehensive plan to make it work. They did, and then he sneaked away and never mentioned it again. Strange man. He stands for nothing except his next 100 million. Story 20. I was a huge Elon Musk fanboy. I literally raged about how the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal would run baseless hit pieces on Tesla to protect their relationships with traditional automakers. I also could not wait to buy a Tesla someday. When he started going anti-woke during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, I went from fanboy to neutral. When he started defending Russia and saying Ukraine should surrender to preserve the global economy, I was absolutely done. Elon Musk, like almost every other insanely rich person in the United States, is purely motivated by greed and has no morals. That is very apparent and is why I now despise him. Story 21. My friend was a huge fan of Elon Musk until he worked for him. Story 22. The Thai cave rescue and the Ukraine situation have enraged me. I cannot think of anyone so high up who ruined their reputation on such dumb topics. He went out and literally sabotaged military operations. He helped brew up anti-Ukraine rhetoric and has probably caused many deaths. Story 23. I was indifferent toward him. I respected him for being intelligent and thought Tesla vehicles and the work he was doing with space exploration technologies were cool. Once he started showing his personality to the world, I realized he was just another immature, rich asshole and grifter. Story 24. After the Twitter acquisition, my view of him changed. I no longer saw him as a great businessman. Instead, I realized he is a peddler of vaporware, making bold promises he never delivers. His turn toward Make America Great Again views in recent years has made me hold him in contempt. Story 25. There was an episode of Star Trek Discovery where one character gives an inspiring speech about the history of spaceflight, and he mentions the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, Elon Musk, and a fictional character who invents the warp engine. It has not aged very well. Story 26. I liked him when he was pushing hard for electric vehicles and acting like a mad scientist making flamethrowers. My turning point was when he became active on Twitter and I saw his personality. He seemed like a sad man who desperately wants people to love him and think he is funny. I prefer my evil billionaires to not care whether I live or die, like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg. Story 27. I thought he was great and a sensitive man. The way he would cry in interviews and say he was heartbroken when his wife left him. Even though his aspirations for space travel were lofty, I defended him. Now what has he done? He tweets about Jewish and black people and has fully committed to being a Republican and Donald Trump supporter. If he does not like someone, he calls them a pedophile. That was when I first realized he was a deeply troubled person. When he was not allowed to build that submarine to rescue the children from that cave, a professional diver performed the rescue, which makes much more sense. Elon became angry that he lost out on glory and told his millions of followers that the diver was a pedophile and child rapist because he had visited Thailand. I hate him more than any other billionaire. He is a 50-something man with a face full of Botox, sharing edgy online memes and Doge memes, and saying things like, epic. Story 28. I was not a huge fan, but I had no negative feelings about him. Then there was his strange behavior during that underwater cave rescue, and he began using his control over Starlink to interfere with Ukraine. I do not think he has both oars in the water. Story 29. The cave situation was the first moment I thought he was misguided, but it was not until he started aligning with Trump and other authoritarians that he lost my good faith. Story 30. Everyone's saying the cave thing is probably right, but once he left the Zuckerberg cage fight, I knew he was terrible. Story 31. Realizing he's just as much of a rich jerk as the rest of them. Story 32. When I discovered he was a Russian Make America Great Again traitor, I learned he had turned off Starlink while it was guiding munitions to the Russian Black Sea Fleet from Ukraine. He watched and personally took steps to stop a Ukrainian attack on Russia, causing the bombs to fall into the water and protecting Russia. He is a complete hang-them-high traitor to the United States of America and its allies. Story 33. In the diver incident, Elon Musk called the diver a pedophile even though the diver was a hero. Musk was upset because the diver said Musk's small submarine would not work. Story 34. He is one of the richest men on Earth and is addicted to Twitter likes. Story 35. He opened his mouth and began talking. Honestly, I did not know much about Elon Musk except that he was a technology startup billionaire who owned Tesla and had a cameo in Iron Man 2, where he chats with Tony Stark. That was about the extent of my knowledge until the incident with the Thai soccer players trapped in the cave, when he became upset because the rescuers rejected his ill-considered suggestion. My view of him declined after that. Story 36. Since he bought Twitter, the more he tweets about any topic, the clearer it becomes that he is an idiot with too much money. Story 37. I kind of like the early idea of Elon Musk, the brilliant chief executive officer, self-made entrepreneur, futurist, founder of Tesla with an engineering background, striving to advance mankind. But the more I found out about him, it turned out that was not true. He is obviously smart, but he is not brilliant. He is smart enough to surround himself with brilliant people who do the work for him. He is not really self-made. He made some smart investments, but he did not start from the bottom, as he would want everyone to believe. He is an heir to a millionaire emerald magnate. He had the opportunity to attend any school and to start any business with little risk. He is not really a futurist. He does not come up with new technologies on his own. He latches on to other people's high-tech projects by providing funding. He is not the founder of Tesla. The company was founded in 2003 by two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Musk stepped in half a year later with funding to keep the company going and, as chairman of the board, had himself added as a founder to the corporate manifest. Musk does not have an engineering background. He has a Bachelor of Arts, not a Bachelor of Science, in physics, and a Bachelor of Science in economics. I do not judge people based on their education, but Musk wants to be perceived as an inventor and engineer, and he is not one. He hires engineers to do the job and then takes credit. Finally, it should be obvious now that Musk is not trying to advance mankind. He promoted Teslas as a solution to transport-based carbon emissions, but he is vehemently opposed to public transit and tried to block or stall construction of the California high-speed rail. Instead of using the boring company to bore subway tunnels, he is building inefficient personal car tunnels. The Cybertruck runs counter to harmonious, sustainable living. It was his pet project, reportedly because he wants an armored vehicle to feel isolated from the public. His idea of going to Mars is rooted in an unwillingness to be told what to do. He dislikes being constrained by laws, so he aims to create his own enclave where his word is final. And that was all before he turned into an alt-right figure, bought Twitter, and began having public meltdowns. To summarize, it was not one particular thing, but discovering that his public persona was manufactured and did not match his actual actions. Story 38. When he turned his back on his own child for being transgender, that tells me a lot about his ethics. Story 39. His behavior during the pandemic, becoming extremely upset about wanting to reopen his offices, was problematic. The Twitter situation made that clear. Story 40. It was not a single event but a pile that kept growing. The incident in which he called a diver a pedophile. The plan to take the company private at $420 a share. Headbutting a Tesla on the conveyor belt to argue that safety was overrated and that conveyor speed could be increased to make more cars. Anti-union activities. Anti-transgender rants. Erratic and inflammatory tweets. buying Twitter and the decisions he made afterward. The Hyperloop, a promise he could not deliver. Tesla's self-driving claims that were hyped beyond their capabilities and a greater focus on media attention than on technological quality. A consistent failure to deliver on promises. Eventually, it became obvious that either he never had much beyond hype or he lost whatever made him worthy of that hype. His judgment appears to have deteriorated, and he let praise inflate his ego. He removed smart people from around him and now surrounds himself with yes men, which explains the poor decisions he made regarding Twitter. Story 41. I told people to vote for the Republican Party on Twitter and deleted my account that day. Story 42. I liked him when all I knew about him were the memes, such as the not a flamethrower. I stopped liking him when I learned anything more about him. Story 43. I first learned how poorly many Tesla workers are treated and about his anti-union stances. Then I learned about the Emerald Mine allegations, and soon after he began working with the Trump administration. It snowballed from there. Now he is allowing Nazi and anti-transgender voices to be amplified on his platform. Story 44. Like many, the Thai cave rescue was the starting point, but I dismissed it as eccentricity because I believed he was doing remarkable work with Tesla and SpaceX, and I badly wanted a Tesla. He then moved toward the political far right, opposed coronavirus disease 2019 restrictions and questioned the science, bought Twitter and severely mismanaged it, and paid less attention to Tesla while the company failed to meet many of his promises and still does not. At that point, I stopped wanting a Tesla, not only because of his behavior but because I no longer believed the product was a good one, and I sold all my stock, locking in some nice gains. The only one of his companies I still greatly admire is SpaceX, largely because he appointed someone competent and steady, Gwynne Shotwell, and seems to be staying out of the way. Story 45. The cave rescue turned him from an icon into a shithead almost overnight. Story 46. When he started denying science to keep his factories open during the pandemic. Story 47. When I was in college and Space Exploration Technologies Corporation was a new, subversive startup in the aerospace field, I wanted nothing more than to work there. The first couple of years were great. I felt like I was helping push humanity forward. The final couple of years ground me down until I finally burned out and collapsed, figuratively. His non-stop nonsense and the hyper-competitive work environment just grind people down. There is a reason the average age of employees is so low. You get to work on exciting projects, but there is a severe mental and physical toll to working 60 or more hours a week. Meanwhile, the person at the top talks about how he works constantly, but when he was there, he spent his time on his computer messing around on social media. Story 48. His recent talk with a group of conspiracy theorists, in which he said he agreed with most of what they were saying, really bothered me. It reminded me of Alex Jones, Andrew Tate, and other controversial figures making unfounded claims. Story 49. I realized he had zero technical knowledge or engineering ability and that, on the whole, the people who idolize him are pseudo-intellectual neckbeards. Story 50. Many years ago, a friend told me that the man who founded PayPal was selling a flamethrower. Later, I heard he was building rockets and cars, so I looked into him. A very cursory glance will tell you everything you need to know. He has never been a visionary or an inventor. He is a money-focused person who will not stop talking. Thankfully, everyone is starting to see that he is a thin-skinned proponent of censorship who will hop onto any side of an argument and lacks strong convictions. Story 51. I think it was when he said he would donate several $1 billion towards solving world hunger if someone gave him a genuine plan. It sounded like, I do not like being compared to a greedy dragon, and I could actually make a huge impact on the lives of billions of people, but I knowingly choose not to. Story 52. Calling a rescuer a pedophile just because he, admittedly rudely, called Musk's submarine useless in that situation. Story 53. Once I started learning more about him, my opinion changed. Story 54. His overall presentation was that of a self-made billionaire, and his opinions on everything. Story 55. The cave, the anti-trans rhetoric, buying Twitter, and his descent into the right-wing outrage sphere. Fuck this guy. I've never seen anything like it. Brain worms ruined him. If he didn't own an electric car company, he'd probably be a climate denialist at this point, too. Story 56. I've watched Thunder00T's critiques of Musk for years, mostly for entertainment. The message eventually sank in. Musk is a pathological liar who makes routine and absurd false predictions, which suggests he has other flaws. I don't like the Mars colony hype because living on Mars would be a hellish, largely underground experience. It would be easier to colonize the ocean floor or a mountaintop, or to establish a fully self-sustaining colony on prime land on Earth. He uses Mars for free publicity, and I began to resent that. Story 57. I admired that Elon Musk was a big idea person who actually put ideas into motion. It wasn't just let's go to space. It was, I know the right people. I know where to get the money. I know how to set up the company. Let's go to space. And then he did it. The same mentality helped him succeed with Tesla. He did not start the company but saw the potential and made it happen. He saw potential with Starlink and followed through. But then he became genuinely famous in a way most technology entrepreneurs and chief executive officers do not. His fame exceeded that of most tech figures and bordered on sports star or entertainer level. I think that triggered his ego. Once he realized controversial statements increased his spotlight and often had few consequences, he lost restraint. Now he seems like an idea person who does not get things done. Hyperloop looked impressive when pitched but went nowhere. The proposed Tesla Hyperloop highway also failed to materialize. Buying Twitter was a poor decision he pursued partly to spite the company, and running it has not gone smoothly. Rebranding it as X discarded much of the platform's recognizable identity. The Cybertruck feels like the epitome of ego-driven design. Although two primary Tesla designers were involved, as a designer I see none of Tesla's usual design language in the Cybertruck. It appears to be a personal project driven by Musk's aesthetic, with designers asked to make it somewhat digestible. The vehicle is unattractive, exhibits amplified production flaws that Tesla has been criticized for, and has reported corrosion and burdensome maintenance requirements. It is an expensive pickup that performs poorly for typical truck needs. The reveal keynote was embarrassing, and many promised features were cut or executed poorly, such as the Cybertruck Basecamp tent. Overall, this pattern suggests someone increasingly out of touch with ordinary people. He realized that people hung on his every word because he was delivering real achievements, and he used that attention to act more brazenly and provocatively. Story 58. I was a huge Elon Musk fanboy in early high school, but then I realized he was a hack and a douchebag. I became disillusioned for several reasons. He was unable to take criticism about the Hyperloop from transportation experts. He proclaimed electric cars would save the planet while ignoring the harm caused by mining for the necessary materials. He insisted on writing footnotes for Ashley Vance's biography to explain himself. His children were not speaking to him. He constantly spouted almost conspiracy-level claims. The submarine fiasco. He insisted on free speech, but in reality he actively or inadvertently pushed for an increase in hate speech and tried to ban anyone who challenged him. He is a corporate figure who does not care about people. He only cares about saving the world, his way, and lives in a bubble. He is a cultural cancer. Story 59. Trans hate, immigrant hate, alignment with Make America Great Again, general douchebaggery, and all-around asshat. Story 60. It started with pedophile subculture material. I went from thinking he was just a despicable rich man to actually loathing him when he said, "We will overthrow whoever we want," about Bolivia. Story 61. There wasn't a turning point. I was impressed with Tesla and SpaceX, and thought Elon was kind of cringy and should really hire public relations instead of speaking publicly, but I liked hearing so transparently about rocket development. Over time, things added up. There were anti-union actions, bad labor practices, and racism at Tesla. There was increasingly unhinged nonsense on Twitter. He wasted $40 billion buying Twitter and fired most of the company. Then came the full-on right-wing racist behavior he is doing now. It's not like I ever entirely trusted that he was a good guy. No billionaire is a good person, but over time it went from he does cool stuff to it would be better for everyone if General Motors bought Tesla and SpaceX was nationalized by the United States government. Story 62. He called a cave rescuer a pedophile because he did not agree with Elon Musk's proposed plan to use an automated submarine in the rescue. Who does that? Story 63. During the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, This supposedly science-loving guy revealed himself as just another businessman. He spread all kinds of anti-shutdown nonsense, denied the pandemic was an issue, and wanted everyone back in the office doing in-person work in April 2020. I remember being taken aback. I thought he would do some dumb self-promotional stunt like Dyson did, or like his submarine Thai cave episode. I expected things like, oh, I will have Tesla and SpaceX cure the virus in 90 days. Anyone who says I am wrong is a pedo. He never delivered or mentioned it again. This is what I expected from Elon, and to some extent tolerated. Nope. He was just like, this is bullshit. This is government overreach. I'm moving to Texas. Let's reopen the office, restart the economy, and risk the lives of the elderly. What? You want people to be able to work from Mars but won't let them work from home? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.